Report on the cloud. We're going to turn on captions. It's going to try to make sense of our talking here. Show captions. Okay. Welcome everybody. This is Alderman Lee from the 11th Ward. We're here for a community meeting to, we're at a second meeting actually, to discuss a proposal for residential permit parking in two areas, west of Halsted and east of Halsted. And this is in response to some new businesses that have recently opened up, the Ramova Theater, and we have with us today Tyler and Emily Nevis from the Ramova Theater, as well as the Morgan Arts Complex. These are all, is everybody familiar with where the Morgan Arts Complex is? 37th and Morgan, just to situate anybody who's not familiar with the area. That is a new event space. Dolce Arte is a new restaurant that's recently opened. If you haven't been there, give it a try. It's great. But they are increasingly doing more special events in the space, and that there's multiple spaces over there. And we've had challenges with residentials, with residents losing parking because of people attending events who are parking on the residential streets. So with the opening of the Ramova earlier this year, you know, I always said I was open to residential permit parking. I do think that this is the best way to protect residential parking spaces. It is obviously something that has some pros and cons to it. So we're going to talk through that a little bit more. I'm going to put onto the screen here what we're looking at in person here. We've got hard copies here for everybody, but I'll share this on the screen. I think most important is this map piece of it. Let me hide this here. So before I do that, though, let me just introduce a couple of people. Zoe Chan, my chief of staff, over here to my right, and then Vince Arrigo on my left. He's was recently working for us, but he's a great volunteer and continues to support the ward. And he was the last person that you saw if you came to the first meeting. So wanted to just have some continuity in that respect. But what you see before you, if you're in the room, you've got a hard copy of it, is a proposal that we've drawn up. The lines in red are the west permit parking, the west permit area that we're proposing, and then the blue is to the east. What we're proposing goes as far north currently as 34th Street and as far south as 38th Street. To the east, it would be Emerald and Union. So it would be both sides of Union. And then to the west, we would go all the way to Morgan from Halsted. The lines that you see in red would be the proposed areas for the RPP to the west. Anything that is in yellow is an existing RPP. So if you live on one of these blocks that already has residential permit parking, you will keep your permits. We will make no changes to you. That just seems like too big of a hassle for everybody. So we're going to leave those alone. What we're doing, I just want to lay out what the process is going to be here. So tonight is a night for more feedback. People have had the opportunity now to sort of experience what life is like with the Ramova, now having a few more shows. You know, Tyler and Emily are here to, you know, answer questions if people have them. Obviously we want them to have more shows because that will make the theater more successful at the end of the day. But that necessarily means that, you know, we need to be able to protect parking. You know, my priority is to protect the community and all of this. So we want to make sure that we are doing that. What we're going to do today is I'm going to take feedback. I'm going to answer questions for everybody that's here, that's on the Zoom. In the chat, Carlos Diaz from my staff is actually in the Zoom room. He's going to be managing the chat. We will take questions in just a minute, okay? We are, sorry, just totally lost my train of thought. What we'll do is we'll leave here today with whatever potential changes are going to come out of the discussion tonight. For anybody that's not here, and we did receive written comment as well. So emails, people have come in. What we'll do is we'll do a revised plan in terms of the map, and we'll post that on Facebook. We'll share it there. We'll put it in the newsletter, and we'll leave comments open probably for another couple weeks before we finalize anything for submission. I have until basically June, the first week of June, if we want to get this in for the next council meeting. The next council meeting is going to be June 12th. So that'll be my next opportunity to submit anything. And my preference is to get something in June, in order to make sure that we don't get held up with the August recess. The way this process goes is once we finalize the map of the parking permit district area, we'll put together an ordinance that would cover every address that's going to be in the permit area. And that has to go to city council. It has to get introduced 1 month, then it will get reviewed the following month by pedestrian and traffic safety. Right? Too many committees. And then approved by the full city council at the July meeting. So if we wait another month, it's going to add another month to everything. Once everything is passed, and I have no expectation that won't pass once we get through this process, then it gets handed over to the Department of Finance and CDOT, where they have to do a, what is it called? A survey of all of the areas. They have to figure out where they're going to put signs, how many they have to put up, clerk's office and finance work out a zone number. They have to get everything in order. There will be a big transition period. So what will happen is that you will get a communication about what zone you're going to be in and at what point signs will go up and when you can, when enforcement will happen. So if you already have a sticker on your car, you've already paid for it, like I just did recently, you'd go back to the clerk's office and add the RPP to your stickers. So that's kind of what the process is. So we're not going to make any final decisions tonight. I want to leave it open. I want to make sure that as many people can provide feedback as possible. So as you're listening here, if your neighbors aren't on this call, we're going to refer them back to this video when the link is posted. And then we're going to invite them to continue to give us feedback for a couple of weeks before we finalize the map. So again, what you see before you is the proposal for 2 different zones, east of Halsted and west of Halsted. I think one of the questions in the chat was, why are we doing, have we considered, why not pursuing a single permit for all these areas, and why not make it all yellow? Oh, so because there are already other existing RPP zones that we have, as I said earlier, my preference is not to sort of disrupt the people that already have RPP. You know, I've also had the suggestion recently, and actually several people have asked about just using the White Sox parking zones as the zones for this as well. Main difference and main reason why I don't want to do that is because there's not a way for us to communicate what events are going on where. You know, the nature of the Ramova Theater as well as the Morgan Arts Complex is that they might be able to book a party or a performer on very short notice. The White Sox season is published, you know, at the beginning of the year, and you know for the rest of the season when there's going to be games and when parking is going to be enforced. So that's the main driver in all of that. Also, with the White Sox parking stickers, I'm most interested in protecting the parking for the people who live in the immediate footprint of both of these venues. The Sox parking zone goes as far east as basically Wentworth, as far north as 29th Street, as far south as 41st, Pershing, and then as far west as Morgan. So Morgan, being that western border, is the only thing that sort of falls within this space. What that would mean is that anybody that lives in these other areas could come over and park in your spots, in your residential areas, if they were, let's say, going to a party at the Morgan Arts Complex or going to a concert at Ramova. And we have the issue of people who shouldn't be selling parking passes, who would have one more avenue to make money. It's a hard enough challenge for us at this point to crack down on people who are abusing that privilege. So my preference would be not to give someone else an opportunity to abuse this. And again, really focus on just protecting the people who park over here. Are there any questions in the room right now? Yes, Pete.
No, when you see the phone number, that phone number is same
Yes, one zone for the blue. Yep. Now, if the people who are currently have RPPs want to just be one part of the one single blue zone, I'm happy to do that too. That's what this discussion is for. My thought was, my thinking, and it's not necessarily like the right thing, was that you already have yours established. You've probably already purchased, permits already. Unless we agreed to a time to start that, I mean, we can always extend it in the future. If you didn't want to try it right away, but for right now, everything that's in the red and everything that's in the blue would be one single zone. Yes. Sure. Let me make sure I'm repeating the question for the people that are on the Zoom to make sure that they heard. So the last question was, would the zone, everything in red be one zone? And the answer to that question is yes. The follow-up I said to that though was, if the people that are in the current yellow with the RPPs want to be part of the single zone, we can obviously amend this at any time. So I'm open to that discussion. Now, your question, yes. Yep. So the question in the room was, what would be the cost? It is an additional $25 annually with your city sticker. Per car, yes. So per sticker. Yeah. Yeah. And that prints right onto your sticker. So when you go to purchase your sticker, when you go to exchange it, they'll print it right onto your sticker. Yes. You do have to purchase visitor passes. They come in a sheet of 15, and I believe they are $8.50 per sheet. $8 per sheet. And you can, just one more follow-up. You can buy that at the clerk's office, any of the clerk's office locations, or you can purchase them online and they'll mail them to you.
You can buy the trucks.
Oh, they sell them at the currency exchanges now? All right, we have an expert. Pete, I had no idea. I keep going downtown for mine. Okay, so right there on 31st and Wallace? Okay, great, even more convenient. Unfortunately, oh, do they charge you a fee? Okay. A convenience fee for not having to go downtown, right? Because it's at least 18 bucks for parking if you're gonna go downtown. Yes, so you can purchase those. You can purchase, I think, 3 sheets a month. So we try to regulate it. I mean, like people will always find ways to abuse this. They are, the passes are good for. Yeah, so if you're a caretaker, if you have an elderly parent who lives in the ward and they're in this area and there's a caretaker that comes, obviously they're going to need a pass for that. If it's a caretaker that comes all the time, we can talk about, potentially doing an exception for them so that they can get a sticker if that's what, I mean, we've had those requests come in before as well. Yes, and then the question behind, and then you over here, sorry. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, parking sign. Find out. So, other involving. Need to. Join the red.
That's what I would recommend, is to convert that, right? If that's the issue. I mean, for you, especially because you're on that corner and you're used to parking on Morgan. Because what we would be looking to do is, we would be doing residential parking on the east side of Morgan. Oh, so I apologize, to the people on the Zoom. The question is, Warren, our neighbor back here, lives in the yellow zone on the bottom of the map. And he happens to live sort of on the closer to the corner nearest Morgan. And because there's not a place for him to park right in front of his house, he parks on Morgan. So the question is, how does he reconcile this dilemma, because that's 2 different zones? So again, this is exactly why we're having the meeting. I think that's a great point. I'm happy to talk to your neighbors to see how they feel about this about figuring out how we incorporate your zone into the one. But I understand your dilemma there too, right? Because that would put you in a little bit of a precarious position. We could again, we can do an exception so that you could have the other zone, but you can't be in two zones at once. You'd have to pick the one.
If he's already by the zone, he can use. Pick up a little bit. If he's on, he's stuck on it
Right, no, I know.
instead of. He can, red zone.
He could, But-
If he's by, regularly parked on the road.
right, but right now his car is registered to the yellow zone. Yeah. Mhm. Well, so I would say you could have the option, if you wanted to, Warren, switch to the red. I would be happy to provide an exception letter so that you could purchase for the red. So maybe you can try it out. Again, none of this is going to be like set in stone. Hold on one second, I'll get to that question. You can try it out for a little bit and see how it is. And then if at any point you decide, like if there's not enough support to go all red in your current zone, because that's so new. And again, they may want to just kind of keep that for themselves. That what we could do is provide an exception letter for you so that you could purchase.
The game. What?
Yeah, I mean, that would be helpful. That would be helpful, is if we had that kind of feedback. And because your neighbors already that went through the process of signing a petition in order to get that zone that you're currently in, I would want to go back to poll everybody to see what they thought about that. I've got 2 questions in the room, then I come back to you, okay? Okay, there is a comment and a question from Anna, and I'll just read it so that everybody here has it. This is silly to treat the public way like it's a deeded lot for private storage. It doesn't belong to us. We live, because we live nearby it, it's a street, and it doesn't address the question of where customers will park. If you have 1,200 ticket holders, giving up on the 30-minute wait for the CTA buses and driving, what's the plan for where they will park? So how about I let Tyler address the parking question, and kind of what Ramova's plans are for parking for large scale events. And just for the record, I'm just gonna out you for a minute. Tyler and Emily live in the red zone. So this affects them as well. So Tyler, would you like to respond to this?
Sure, so Ramova's capacity is 1,800. We've had, I mean, our largest events probably have close to 2,000. And then we also have White Sox games, we have all transient, traffic on regular days and things like that. The sources or options that we have for parking is we have a parking lot that we purchased across the street that holds about 60 vehicles. We're getting that refinished in the next probably 2 to 4 weeks. And we're also having the lights redone and all of that too, so it'll look a lot nicer. For lower volume days, we're gonna have our customers go in and pay for parking, and it's just gonna be someone controlling the lot. They'll pay an amount, they'll be able to go in and park. For midnights where we have a lot of people coming in, it's a valet service that we're managing with a family-owned group. Where customers will again have their cars valet either across the street to our lot, or we also have secondary lots that we've used in the neighborhood, either with other investors of Ramova that are in the vicinity, and there's also some lots available a little bit further south. So we realize that there's a lot of traffic coming in, and we use lots and this parking service to be able to address it. So far with the events we've had a number of events with large volumes of people. The majority, well, I would say, the majority have been fine with no incident. People utilizing the lot. The majority of people taking mass transportation, the train, Uber, things like that, which we're working on getting a clear drop off and pick up Uber and Lyft to keep that out of the front of keep that off of morning too. But there was one event where we had a high volume of people parking. That was before we had our agreement in place. And that was really the driver for us to get the lot finished and make sure we had this other ballet. So as long as people are, coming to our event, they have the parking resources they need to keep them off the streets. And I believe this measure would further support that people wouldn't be able to park in, permitted areas. The city's shown it, still be able to ticket anybody who raised them. They're pretty good at that.
All right, and I just want to note too that there is meter-free parkings farther south on Halsted. We're not talking about doing permit parking anywhere on Halsted at this point. So there is, from a business perspective, there are free parking spaces further south on Halsted. And then north of, I guess, 36th Street, it's metered.
Don't have special things or anything else, the lots. These, customers use it, others do as well, so it's not just a parking. It's a regular day, come in, make use of the lot, please. It nicely, but we also want to make sure it's available.
Absolutely. And then if you, hold on one second, sir. And if you anticipate larger volumes, you do have agreements with other parking lots in the area to use those for valet. Great. I just want to keep track of people. I have about 5 comments in the chat. This gentleman was next in the room, so we'll take your question. I'll go back to the Zoom questions and then you, sir, and then back here. Okay. 2, 3, 4. Okay.
The Zoom is just noting that the sound is cutting in and out a bit. So if you could just voice for our fellow neighbors online very clearly, that'd be great.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I kind of have 2 questions, one general and one more specific.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but has it been discussed kind of what are the hours of the, is it gonna be
It's up for discussion.
fully enforced or like 6 8?
I think you didn't miss anything. It is absolutely up for discussion. We can do whatever we want, essentially. It can be enforced all the time, always in effect, or it can be hours. So for instance, I live in a zone, RPP zone in Chinatown, and that is currently 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Our issue was people coming and parking their cars in the neighborhood, then getting picked up to go to work at their restaurant jobs. And then when we got home, there was no parking on our street. And then at about 10 or 11 o'clock, when everybody got dropped off, the street would clear out again. So we made it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. so that, we would be able to maintain our parking. So, I think this question is a great question. Do we want to do it from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 8 a.m.? What is yours currently? Yours is always in effect. Yeah. I'm not attached to one idea or another. I mean, that really is, I think. So that's something that we can, I'm absolutely interested in feedback about. What was your second question? Uh-huh. Your address does not, but that's something that we would make an exception for. I mean, because we can't make Halsted permit only.
Right.
And so you live in an apartment on Halsted or one of the townhomes on Halsted. Yeah, it depends on which side you're living on. So I would say if you're on the east side of Halsted, yeah. Okay. We can talk about that. Like I'm happy to talk on an exception basis because in as much as we have commercial along the same corridor of Halsted from 33rd to like down to 38th, there are a good number of residential units on the block as well.
As far as
I know where you are, yeah. Yeah.
Like Sunday bunches late, a little bit more traffic. And as far as the event on the 13th, we wanted to thought about the LA, so we did pick up basically that entire west side of Halsted and our government. And I'm telling you,
The hair salon.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, and on that, like, it's where. We talked to the managed the valley to make that smaller. So it was ones that, like, we had a lot of cars coming in, very short agreements, so we talked.
Are you guys hearing us okay in the Zoom? I'm just ever mindful that you guys can fully participate here. The person that was just speaking, please remind me of your name again.
Alberta.
Alberto. So can you hear us speaking now?
We can really only hear you, Alderman.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is if you have a question, I'm gonna ask you to come up and speak closer to this microphone. I apologize, everybody. Thank you for letting me know. So when you have your question, come up here and speak into the speaker. I'm gonna go into the Zoom chat just to make sure we're paying attention to what's going on in here. Covered the cost. There's a comment in here. As someone who lives on 35th and Halsted, I've yet to notice significant increase in drivers visiting Bridgeport for the Ramova. Shane says, how do you determine which zone you fall into? I live on the corner of 35th and Halsted, above Wings and Rings, but the map doesn't seem to include that either for red or blue. So I think I just addressed that piece of it. If you come in and talk to us, we can figure out how to get you included. So that you can still park in the neighborhood. Oh, sorry, Brenda, I missed your text that said you couldn't hear us. There's a suggestion from Simon, a singular parking permit for all of us in the area in discussion makes the most sense. A couple of people are liking that as well. Anna, we covered your comment. Simon says, thanks for sharing. The Morgan Arts Complex team has also done a great job offering affordable and ample valet parking to incoming patrons. And we still have people that don't even want to pay $5 for a valet, and then they're taking up residential parking spaces. How does one apply for the RPP if the ATM, I don't know, that might be a typo. The sticker is associated to another address, not in the RPP zone, but we live in the proposed RPP zone. So your card does need to be registered to the address that is in the zone in order to receive a permanent sticker. Otherwise, if you have an address, let's just say you don't drive, but you have people who drive that visit you, and you want them to be able to park on the street, you can purchase individual visitor passes.
Did we cover how much those individual visitor passes are?
We did, and I'm sorry you didn't hear. It's a sheet of 15 for $8.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can purchase up to 3 sheets per month. You can purchase those online at the city clerk site, or you can go to a city clerk location, or one of our neighbors shared with us, you can buy them at the currency exchange on 31st and Wallace for a small convenience fee.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, and then I see a hand, Jack Burns. Why don't you go ahead and ask your question? Jack, I think you have to unmute yourself. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I had to hit the unmute button. So Alderman, is this an existing problem, or is this just kind of us being proactive to a potential of more cars coming in with more shows and more events at the Morgan Arts Center?
You know, I have had some constituents come in and talk to us about, you know, the lack of parking, especially those that come home later at night. That tends to be when the problem is most acute. I mean, I can ask the folks in the room here too, depending on which side you live on, what your thoughts are. But I think the problem, I think with more performances and more events going on at both of these locations, especially not, well, I know that the traffic at the ballpark's not what we want it to be. But you know, I during the Crosstown Classic, if there's a concert going on, and then an event going on at Morgan Arts Complex. I mean, we could have like the perfect storm of just, parking horror for our residents. So, my instinct is to try to protect the residential parking in this way.
No, and Alderman, I get that. I appreciate the
Yeah.
fact that you're taking time to at least get the input from the immediate residents that are impacted by this. I obviously live outside of the zone. I live at 32nd and Low. But like many of us in the room and on the Zoom, have family and friends that reside on those blocks, whether it's east of Halsted or immediately west of Halsted. But I have a couple concerns that I don't think the city of Chicago ever really takes into consideration when they propose these zones, is what happens when there are businesses or entities inside the zone that don't have residential status because they are a social athletic club or
Absolutely.
a bar at 38th and Union, or a park at 37th and Sangamon. How do we remedy 300 members who possibly may stop in from time to time to
Yep.
work out, to see a friend, when we can't legally purchase guest passes? But beyond that, imagine the cost incurred just to continue to operate the way we have for the last 100 years.
I understand.
I understand fully that parking is tough. I live at 32nd and Low, and like you, Alderman, if you don't have a parking spot by 10 o'clock at night, you might as well park 5 blocks away. And now I'm nowhere near the Ramova. I'm nowhere near the ballpark, but there's still a parking problem. And one thing that I hope none of us overlook is the substantial investment that the people at the Ramova Theater have undertaken, the community itself, whether it was through some type of TIF funding, as well as the Morgan Arts Center. We want business to come to our area, and we want that to be done in a way that respects everybody. But let's not live in a bubble that this is going to solve a parking problem that is already existing prior to the Ramova Theater being renovated, prior to the Morgan Street Arts Center having a wedding or an event. I worry about what happens next. Like when our 80-year-old member who wants to come and get on the treadmill or the bike, and he lives at 38th and Low, what does he do? Does he now walk up, or does he then have to purchase passes? And if so, how many passes can we purchase, and how do we distribute passes?
Right. So Jack, if I may, I can address part of this, and
Yep.
thank you for joining us. And as always, your input's really appreciated. The residential permit parking program is only for residential properties. So for a club like the Hamburg Social Club, we wouldn't be able to, in front of your property, make that residential permit parking. So that would be outside the zone. That's something that we've learned since the first meeting. So the same would apply for Shinnick's. We wouldn't, it would be in front of their property, and we would not do it on the east-west street. So yes. No, so we just did this on Elias Court in the ward off of Archer. One side of Elias is residential buildings. The other side is the garages from the people on Loomis.
Yeah. So Alderman, we have
Hold on one, Jack, hold
75
on.
feet of frontage.
Jack, hold on 1 second.
Yep.
I just want to address the gentleman in the room. So finish your
Yeah.
question. I'm sorry, there was 2.
Could he come up to the
Yes.
mic?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So can you repeat your question just into the mic so that we could hear it?
Not gonna be.
Correct. If it's in front of something that is not a yes.
Parking for 17. Yes. Yeah.
We have, we have 60 spots, and then during shows, I believe we have.
The one who's 60 for 15 to 1700.
we can secure more if we ever need more than that. We have.
Okay, here,
Four-story garage.
all right, I wanna finish with Jack here.
Yeah.
So Jack, you've got,
Oh,
you
but
said
yeah,
you've got
I-
75 I just wanna address that. So you've got 75 feet of frontage in front of your property at the club. The permit parking signs would point away from those. That's what would happen.
Okay.
So you would have whatever that, however many spots that would be, in front of the property there would not be within the zone.
But just so we're clear, or I'm clear on this, the area adjacent to the property would not be part of the zone. However, it wouldn't be exclusive for the
No,
Hamburger
it would,
Club.
that is correct, because I
Okay,
don't
I
have
mean,
a way,
and-
I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been there for 100 years and we've been great neighbors and great stewards to the community. And the last thing we want to do is occupy 75 feet of precious parking. And like I said before, this parking has always been a problem. You and I are around the same age growing up. We came from 1 and 2 car households. Now we have 4 and 5 car households. So no amount of restrictions and parking is ever going to achieve what we're looking for. And we only have to look at the gentleman that lives adjacent to Morgan and has to park off of the street onto Morgan in a different zone today. There's just so much capacity that you could put on a city street. And truth be told, I don't foresee the Ramova Theater being an encumbrance to the community in terms of traffic, in terms of cars. I mean, most people Uber, others will valet. If this was a big problem, I would say, yeah, let's get the petition together, send it to city council and get the zone parking. I think we're going to create 4 other problems just to solve a problem that isn't necessarily a problem yet. And I can only speak for the Hamburg Club, but as a lifelong resident of the area, I can't tell you how many times I just would stop over by my brother at 38th and Union and pop in for an hour. How do I get, a pass from him? He lives at 38th and Low. There's just too many logistics to try to figure out to solve a problem that's not a problem yet.
I hear you, and I think that there's other people who share your opinion. Listen, there's not going to be any decision that's going to satisfy everybody. What I'm trying to do is do the best we can to protect residential parking. I'd love to hear from some folks in the
Yep,
room
thank you.
here. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, yes, thank you. Well, no, he's first, then you. Was. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Actually, can you go ahead? Won't be long enough. She's right behind you. He was first. I say you go ahead and go first.
Sorry, I missed this, but I went to the board and said 5:30.
We changed the location to make it bigger. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about
I
that.
missed the beginning.
Okay.
How is this? The neighbors have been living there for 50, 70 years. I've been told different stories. One of them is they're gonna raise the price of your city sticker, gonna do this and that. What did I miss?
Sure, yeah, so the question was asked, if there is an additional cost, and there is, it's $25 more per year on your annual city sticker. So when you go to buy it, they'll pull up that if all of this happens, it'll show that your address is within a residential permit parking zone. They will ask you if you would like to purchase the permit. If you have a garage and you never park on the street, you never have to buy the permit. Okay, but for your guests, you would have to purchase guest passes, and that's a sheet of 15 for $8.
Okay. That being said, the people that invested in a Ramova and the people that invested in Morgan Arts Center should have took this under consideration as part of their plan to do this. That's my opinion.
Mhm.
The parking lot there, I know it holds 70 cars. It's not 60. I've lived there my whole life. It used to be a city parking lot. I know that, but if they really concerned about this, they should go up 4 or 5 story parking. To accommodate all these 1,500 to 1,700. Okay, I understand Uber and all that
Mhm.
stuff. Why should we have to pay out of our pocket? When we've lived there our whole life and these investors come in. Oh, we put $5 million in there, oh, we put this, I don't care, you're the one that's gonna make the money. If they have parking there, they can make money in parking. So why do we get stuck paying it? That's basically my 2 cents.
Okay,
You allow
thank
people
you.
to build a
Okay.
3 flat condo with no parking?
So you're asking a zoning code question, and they did go through all of
The
the,
answer is no.
yeah, well, for new construction, no. I know, and I apologize that we can only accommodate so many people at the ward office, and we didn't think about as many people that were gonna be here, so we changed the location. I'm sorry that didn't get communicated. We should have put a sign on the door. Oh, we did. You could potentially, depending on the circumstances, if you go to the zoning board of appeals, but the zoning code does say that you have to have parking these days, and depending on where you are, it varies. Potentially,
Be true.
Yeah.
Now you can.
So
Yeah.
part of my. I think the people at remote. Should pay this fee. So we don't have. I mean, why do I get stuck paying an extra $25? I'm paying $200 a year now. Now you want to pay 25 just so some crazy nuts could have a party over there? No.
well, the reason for the permit parking would be so that you would have protection for your spots. And I understand where you're coming from. There's really not a way for us to require the Morgan Arts Complex or the Ramova Theater to pick up the cost for every single residence.
If you pass it.
So. Here, can you do me a favor, Tyler, and just speak into that so that we can have everybody.
And the one thing I'd say is, I hope no one thinks, I'm not gonna show you what we. Not getting too wealthy up front, live in the community, or girls go home and all that stuff. And by the way, the majority of investors are from the neighborhood as well. 2nd generation, 3rd generation, 6th generation that. The best we could do with the park and working with the local politicians at the time, Patrick, was to buy it 70, I'd love to get your help in full 60, so we can squeeze 10 more in this more money for all of us. We could buy the parking lot across the street. So what we've done is we always have that, we're valeting it, we're gonna try and valet it and work away for as many events as possible. It's about $15 per weekend with. We don't keep any of that, it's going to the valet number right now. For our bigger events, it will cost more to actually valet the car to across the street. We're working on showers to get that lot as well. And then we have the Trip Light building to the west on 35th, because they're investors in the moment as well. And then we got Joby, ADG, and some others. We're doing our best to try and accommodate the cars that we think we need, the cars we think we'll need. So far, for the sold out shows, and again, this is only my experience, we could absolutely be wrong. We've not seen a major impact on the neighborhood parking. The biggest issues we've had so far, because we check with all the ones after every show, we've had some school buses that parked in the community during high school poetry event. And we did during a show in early March, had a lot of people drive in for that show and they were parking in the neighborhood and it was a problem. They blocked Pete in so he couldn't get up his garage and some other things. That's when we worked to secure the additional lots. And for us, it's actually financially better if more people come and we can actually use more parking. The challenge is going to be if we get these large popular events and the people don't want to pay for the parking, it's only naturally going to overflow in the community, and we're trying to resolve. But I really do, we really do appreciate the frustration. We're in Ramova every day, and I promise you, we'll do what we can to fix it. I don't think we can afford to pay for the parking permits for everybody in the community, but we will work to see what we can do with the lot that we have. That again is free for anybody who wants to use it during the day. And on those,
Quite have 5 shows a month. Got family lives every single block up until low, right? So I don't have to pay for it, but now they can't park in these two streets and they're my street. So they're, you know, to block off two streets and just push everybody to low. I'm not I don't agree with that. So either make the whole sock sticker, just make the whole sock sticker a zone then.
We have a sock sticker in work.
Make it a
But-
sock remove the sticker, then don't pay anything. Why do I need the sock sticker? And then pay it? I'll put against you guys, I'll do what you gotta do. I should have to pay agent. And I got pissed off every single time I'm older union. I wanna stop and see Richie, I gotta pay, he's gotta pay $2, or I gotta pay $2 for a pass to walk into his house. And it's a money grab from the city because you know they're gonna be out at 6 o'clock. Walking around ticketing people, just because now it's permanent. The revenue will be. But there will be, I mean, when they know that this is a money grab, the city will be out ticketing people. Because now it's a permit. It's not gonna pay.
Yeah.
It's not gonna pay for remote, it's just gonna stay permanent.
Yeah, and
And.
all right, here, let's pass this over.
I live in the yellow zone, the 34th place, and the meter maids are rarely there. And people are parking without permits, so I know what it's like to have a permit, they don't ticket, nights and weekends are the worst, I have to park 5 blocks away. It's a woman at night walking to my car, and I'm concerned about enforcement, how are you gonna enforce that with more permits?
No, I think that's a very valid point, right? So like I said, I live, yeah.
They should though, it's not fair.
No,
It's a funny thing, they're gonna get.
it's also frankly a personnel thing, and it is like, I hear what you're saying and I know how that looks. I tell you, I call in stuff all the time myself, and I ask for the resources to come out to enforce residential parking for that exact reason, because you paid for it, you wanted it, and if it's not being enforced, it's useless to you. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, like, we're having this discussion because I want to hear from as many people as possible. I also want to hear from people because people have told me that they want it. I didn't just create this out of nothing. Please, I would not put myself through all of this if people didn't ask to have the permit parking. Look, we can wait a little longer if we want to and see. I'm open to it, but I want to hear from as many people as possible. My biggest fear right now is that the summer months come up, there's going to be more shows, there's going to be more stuff. Then all of you will be coming knocking on my door saying that there's no parking on the street. So I'm trying to get ahead of it. That is really what I'm trying to do. And there's not a way for me to make literally everybody happy.
But like Jimmy said, why can't we have a combination White Sox for Ramova Art Center?
I mean, if someone's gonna get, why should I get that the resident, let the person go into the building? So make it a stock sticker, and number one, I don't know when the show will be. Not that I don't follow it, but. You know, it could be a Thursday night, it could be a Sunday night, whatever they do, it's fine, but. The Sox, it's in the paper, is the Ramova Theater gonna be in the Sun Times in the back page at what time the show starts?
Well, I think this is part of the challenge with making all of this one single zone, because the Sox zone, and I apologize, because part of what you missed earlier, reminded everybody of what the Sox zone is. This, make sure you pay that. Because around here they do. They're like Nazis on Halsted. Take a picture, make sure you tell them it was busted. You gotta call them and tell them that it's busted. That way you won't get a ticket. Just pro tip for you. So the Sox zone goes as far north as 29, as far east as the Dan Ryan, as far west as Morgan, and as far south, I think, is 39th Street. Problem that I have with that, and the biggest challenge for me, is the guest passes that everybody has. Right? There's already people selling guest passes on the street in front of games. Yes, and I can only control so much. What I'm trying to do is limit that opportunity for someone else now to take those passes and sell them around here on a night when there's a concert going on. And then they're selling spots on your street. I know, so there.
They sell this spot. Who's in it?
Gotcha. So there's the lady in the back has been waiting very patiently. If you wouldn't mind coming forward, and then I promise we'll, Brenda, I see your hand raised, and then we'll get back to the chat.
First of all, thank you for doing this, for trying to be proactive. And thank you to the new venue. Like, it's exciting for the neighborhood. I mean, it's pros and cons always with change, but thank you. Thank you. So my question is, and I apologize because I was also a little late, so I feel like some of it you've covered, but I just want to.
No problem.
So for me, as you may know, Morgan is semi-commercial.
Mhm.
We've been there many years, and it used to be that it was all like mostly a lot of single family homes. Now it's multi-unit homes, so it's already challenging for parking. So it sounds like you said that even though we're not quite on the zone, because we're gonna be dealing with the spillover, we would still have an opportunity to buy the permit if we needed it, or how does
Do you
it work?
live there or you operate a business?
No, it's residential. I have a 2-flat,
Okay, you have a 2-flat. So where are you?
right on like 34th and Morgan, right? Like by
Right at,
Polo's.
yes, yeah, we could absolutely, we look at case by case exceptions all the time for people who live sort of like, I live right on a corner, so my address isn't in the zone, but like the side of my house is. So,
Because like I
yeah.
said, we already have a challenge because a lot of the units are now multi-unit,
Mhm.
so, it's always, it used to be easier to park on Morgan, let me put it that
Right.
way. So even with our garage, like every unit or every building, a lot of them have like 4 cars per apartment or, so. That's why I'm just wondering what the option is, like if you're just outside the, that zone, the new zones that will
You
happen.
we can have a conversation about an exception,
would-
like,
so-
we could provide an exception letter, which would allow you to purchase for that designated
And for
zone.
guest passes also.
Yes, that would
Okay.
allow you to do.
Okay.
Yes, that would
Okay.
allow you to do both.
Okay, yes, thank
Yeah,
you. I just
you're
wanted to
welcome.
confirm.
You're welcome. Was there another question in the room? Emily, do you want to make a comment? You have to come over here. So I'm sorry.
Maybe.
Okay,
Spots, but it's fine. It's just an idea that.
Someday.
so hold on.
It's no way. 6 o'clock in the morning, but 6 o'clock.
I'm gonna repeat for the people that are in the Zoom. Emily made a comment, and she said, would it help the family visiting if the hours were such that it was more convenient during the days for people to come in and visit you? Because then the parking wouldn't be enforced. I mean, so if we do an hour time frame, then there would be a period of time where this didn't apply. And then Pete suggested that, you never know when events are gonna happen, and if you have. Right. The timing of different events is a challenge because there might be a wedding at the Morgan Arts Complex, and then if it's a weekend and there's a market, because you're gonna start doing markets, right, on the weekend. There could be additional strain on the parking. I'm gonna go to the Zoom. Brenda, you have your hand raised. Why don't you go ahead? Take yourself off mute.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I have just one comment, but I live in the red zone, it looks like, and have lived here my whole life, but I would say with the new businesses coming in, I think that it's really great for the economic development of the neighborhood, drawing in more attention. I park on the street regularly. I have not had any issues. Neither does my partner. And I don't know if I think the couple of times that I have had to park a little bit further away, I think it was worth it just to see community members wanting to spend more time in Bridgeport than they have in the past. So these new businesses coming in have been great. I think they've really brought heart to our community, but I have not had any concerns about parking and would be against these permits just to continue welcoming people outside of the neighborhood to enjoy the businesses, enjoy the neighborhood, etc. So thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Brenda. If there's anybody else on the Zoom who would like to ask a question, please go ahead and use the raise your hand function. I'm flipping through the comments in the chat right now to see if there's any other questions. I'm just gonna, there's been a lot since I got back here. How long does one visitor pass last? It is for a 24-hour period on a guest pass. Oh, he has, okay. Thanks, Carlos. I just want to, I want to make sure the folks in the room also have that information because they're not seeing the chat. So I'll tell you what the questions were, just in case any of you have them. Will patrons of Donovan Park be able to access parking permits? So we can't put, again, it's a residential parking permit. We can't put residential parking on the park side of things. So like along the park, it's not legal for us to do that. So those would not be subject to the zone. Yes.
Well, not on the side of
The west, yeah, that's correct. So the question was on Morgan, and I said this earlier, so it just bears repeating. The plan at this moment would be to not have residential permit parking on the west side because there aren't residential properties on that side of the street. Okay, have you had any sold out shows yet? Again, haven't seen any terrible influx of commuting patrons. Have you had any sold out? They have had sold out shows. Another suggestion from Dave B to just keep the sock stickers all year round, from a cost perspective. Again, look, guys, I'm open to it. We'd have to really figure out what this would look like potentially. Now, if you have a permit zone already, you would still have your permitted zone. If you are already in an RPP.
$25 in the city. Yeah. The city's gonna get it. And for them to say they're not gonna enforce it, they might not do your blocks. I see it running around 4:30 after they first game. And just quietly going through the neighborhood. You probably get more tickets for the Sox game right now than there are people in the stadium.
Good.
So you tell me that's not a money grab? I mean, I know it's a rule, and the rule is a rule, but you're out taking people a mile away when, and the parking lots are empty. Who's gonna park 6 blocks away from Fox Park and walk when the parking lots, you know what I mean? This will be a financial burden for people that live right around there. With tickets.
With
Not for
tickets,
the $25,
I got you.
But what would the ticket be? 50, 100? Because the tickets from the city range from.
No, for
$25.
residential violation, I believe it's $50. It's a $50 ticket. There, you have a question. Go ahead, sir. Actually, would you mind? I'm sorry. I don't know if it will, how far it'll reach back there.
Other venues in the city, what are their processes for having permit parking? I mean, if you live in Chicago, you don't have to run and you run in. You know that permit parking is very, very, it's the life of the big city, what we deal with. So other venues, they have, if you go up to the north side, go by Wrigley, go by the Metro, go by the Ridge, go by the Aragon, they. And
Yeah.
why do they have? There's a reason they have. So I am technically for this because again, I hope to have growth in the removal that will require the use of. Number two, hopefully this will encourage more people to either take public transportation, Uber, rather than drive and park on my street. So no offense, if somebody's gonna sit at the tap room, pour out, get in their car, and hit my car as they pull out. Again, we live in Chicago. This is how life works. We have more cars than people and more cars every day. And again, I think the stressor is to get people to take public transportation, take Uber to these events rather than drive. So I am personally for it. I hope we go for it because again, you know, we live on Emerald.
we get tons of people parking, visit businesses on Holstead
Say, yes, without remote.
without.
It was before.
This was before we bought it. Struggle with that parking again.
We have Hamburg.
Okay.
Right, so, but again, I'm on that street, but why is it like at 3 o'clock on or 12 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, it's like full. Well, where are all these people coming from? Then about 4 o'clock, okay, it's magically open, then,
Yeah, well-
then come back, so again.
And what you have also is two facilities just east of you. There's the CPS regional office that's there, and then you've got IDOT there as well. So there are other commercial businesses that don't have parking lots of their own or have parking lots that are too small for all of the people that are driving in. So thank you. There is a question in the Zoom. Abby, why don't you go ahead? Thank you. Actually, do you want to just hold on to it? If you wouldn't mind being my sound guy? I mean, I keep handing it to you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Abby, go ahead.
Hi, I live on 38th and Emerald. And I was waiting in the waiting room for a long time. So can I just clarify? So there's gonna be a
Sure.
fee for us? If we
Say that one more time. I lost you just for a second. Ed.
So
Sorry,
there will
go
be
ahead.
a fee that we have to pay for the permit, even though we live here?
That is correct. If we go to a residential permit parking zone, there will be a $25 fee that is an annual fee paid with your city sticker registration.
And is that fee money, is that gonna be going back into our ward in any way? Because I know that like our ward desperately needs a lot of things, like like trash cans for people to throw their trash away. I'm so sick of seeing just trash floating around on our streets. Bike racks. I work at Mignoso and we do not have a bike rack. I have requested the city to put a bike rack outside the school every month for the past 2 years. They have never put one. And like, so if we're gonna be spending all of us that live in this area, $25 each, that's creating a ton of revenue. Is that gonna go back to our neighborhood at all?
There's not a, no, it goes into the general fund for the city. And just to be clear, and I apologize that you were in the waiting room for so long. We have, if you would need guest passes as well. So I'm gonna add insult to injury, judging from your question. Day passes for your visitors, you can buy them 15 to a sheet for $8. Yes. 38th and Emerald is not in the zone.
Yes,
Where-
I'm in the zone.
She's in the zone. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Did you have any other questions?
No.
Okay, and I made a note about the bike racks for Mignoso. I wasn't aware of that, so we'll take it up to see if the participatory budgeting group for the ward has room in the budget to potentially put a rack over there.
Yeah.
And they are working on trash cans. There's a whole plan for trash cans. So
Great.
please know
Yeah,
that
I just think
the
that like,
ward is working on it. We are working on this
Cool.
like real time right now.
I just think it'd be great if our ward could have some more money to spend on things for our neighborhood that would like beautify it and make it a better place to live for the people that live here, especially if we're gonna be spending that much money.
Thanks. I appreciate your feedback. And just so you know, the participatory budgeting folks are still meeting, and beautification is actually one of the main drivers for this round of participatory budgeting. JPK on the Zoom has a question. You have your hand raised. Why don't you unmute yourself and go ahead?
Yeah, this is something that I might have missed. I was coming home from work, and so it took me a little bit to get on. But my understanding is that the park permits that exist already in the city code for like Soldier Field, United Center, Wrigley, Comiskey, is it possible to just amend the section that defines the area of that? Because it's already this proposed area, at least where I live, is already SOX permit parking. It seems much easier to me to just extend it and solve this problem without creating like anything that people have to pay for, that people have to, get an extra sticker on our cars. I mean, our cars already like look like NASCAR vehicles at this point, just living in Bridgeport. So you know, is it possible to just amend, you know, it's 968.026 of the, it's still called the
Yeah,
Comiskey Park
I'm familiar.
area permit.
I'm familiar with the municipal code that designates the parking zone for the White Sox. The short answer to your question is that it is possible to amend that. That was created specifically for the White Sox. I don't know if you were on the call earlier when I talked about the reasons why I personally didn't think that extending the White Sox zone made the most sense for a couple of reasons. The White Sox put out their schedule they put out their schedule every year at the beginning, prior to the season. So it's very easy to access what the schedule of the games are. Because we say that there's no parking in these places while there is a game going on. What you're asking for essentially is for us to either ensure that there's some sort of way for the general public to know what events are going on where between these three venues now. Comiskey Park, I will always call it Comiskey Park. Comiskey Park, Ramova, and the Morgan Arts Complex. Because otherwise, then we're saying that it's only zoned for all of us residents all the time. And that actually hurts businesses more on an ongoing basis. So there are challenges. Thank you so much for coming. I've gotten this suggestion many times. I think that it's not as simple as everybody thinks it is going to be to do something like that. I'm open to exploring that. Look, like I said at the beginning of this, I'm not making any final decisions tonight. I wanted all of this feedback. We're going to publish the video link to this recording so that your neighbors who weren't able to come can watch this if they really want to torture themselves. And then I'm going to leave it open for a couple of weeks for more comments. If people want to come in and see me, if they want to provide emails, if they want to call, I will take all of the feedback and then I'll make a determination. So generally speaking, when a party wants a residential permit parking on their block, so, you know, on Pete's block, let's say, so he and his neighbors got together to do that. This is an entire zone that I'm trying to carve out, knowing that we have these two venues. This is something that I would do sort of as an aldermanic prerogative. So I haven't gone door to door to ask every single person because I'm trying to plan for something what I think is going to be an eventuality, which is why I want all the feedback. If at the end of the day, the majority of the people just don't want this, then I'll back off of this. This I'm doing because I've gotten people coming in, and there are people in the room and people on the Zoom who do want the protections because they've already had challenges with parking. There are already existing challenges. So, you know, I'm going to leave this open, but I don't want anybody by any means to think that my mind is made up. My preference would be I'm trying to anticipate as much as we can. And Jack, I'm going to get to your question in just a second. I see your hand raised. Thank you. But I did want to say that for the benefit of the people who came in later, nothing is going to be finalized tonight. I'm not going to do anything without letting everybody know. If you know me at all, you know I'm very committed to transparency. This is not some sort of backroom deal for anybody. So what I ask is that we continue to have this discussion. We'll answer a few more questions here, and we'll go through. I'll ask a couple more questions about what's been proposed here. If this was going to move forward, would anybody want lines to move? Then we should have the conversation about time, if that's in all the time or if it is just within hours. And again, I'm not making any final decisions, but I'd like to ask these questions while I have everybody in the room.
I did have a quick second question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If the petition's been circulated at all yet?
No. It's not, I don't have to circulate a petition to create this zone in this way. Normally, if you lived on a residential street and you and your neighbors on your block wanted residential permit parking, the requirement to do RPP is 75% of the block would have to agree to this. I'm trying to anticipate what the impact of these two venues will be on the neighborhood. No, I mean, I have prerogative over this, but what I'm telling you right now is listen to me. If enough people tell me no on this, I'm not going to force it on everybody. That doesn't mean that on your block, if you would like to do residential permit parking, you can go door to door and you can do this block by block. I'm anticipating my vision of this. If I have a crystal ball, is that after more performances are going on, more events and things start to grow, that eventually more and more people are gonna want residential permit parking. And it's, I believe, a little bit more helpful if we create these zones so that people can have some flexibilities, because if they do it just on their block, if, this is what happens with residential parking, this is a total double-edged sword. Because if I do it on my block and the blocks on either side of me don't have residential permit parking, everybody's gonna go park on their blocks. So it is, no, I completely understand. I completely understand.
But now what? Lowe's got streets, can't even go to you. Now where do you go?
Well-
38th Street was just. Where do you know what I mean? There's, so now, oh, I get to pay $2 a day to go park somewhere.
Or,
You're 60. Your line mark, it's a double-edged sword, so I mean.
it is absolutely,
This is where we've chosen to live.
35th of November, never had a problem.
so,
35th, I'm sorry, but never had a problem.
and this is where, yeah, listen, it stopped on you because I didn't think that people were gonna walk further, park further east, a block further away. It goes to the west because of the Morgan Arts Complex. There's another venue that's sandwiched on the other side. They have a lot of parking, but they're valeting, and I will tell you, because people don't want to pay the $5 for, then their valet is cheap. I've seen their valet, it's $5 most nights. Sometimes if people know that there's a free place to park, they will park in the free spot before they pay $5 for the valet.
I'm just we're trying.
I understand. There is not a way. Hold on a second, because I want to get to Jack. And then actually the person still has, do you have any other questions? JPK 743?
No, that's my question.
Okay, thank you. So let me just finish the comment here. I'm gonna go to Jack on the Zoom and then I'll come right back to you, sir, okay? Look, again, no simple solutions here. The reason that we only went to Union was because we just didn't think that people were gonna walk 3 blocks, to like go 3 blocks in to get to the Ramova. On the Morgan Arts Complex side, because the folks between Halsted and Morgan are crammed between these two, I've had many meetings on the west side over there by the Morgan Arts Complex. No. He's saying that they're, no. He's saying that their valet would do that. It would be a valet. They're not, what, because the other thing that we want to be able to do is manage who's walking through the neighborhood, right? So if you live by Sox Park, and people who live in Armour Square feel this probably most acutely, especially if you live by Court or you live by Turtles. There are people pissing on your grass, dropping garbage all over the place because everybody's walking through the neighborhood to get someplace because people are selling all their passes over there. I mean, that is the reality of what's over there. What we're trying to avoid is to have concert goers or people that are coming from events in the other place walking through the neighborhood, in whatever state that they're in, to get to their cars, making noise, dropping garbage, all of that, if we prevent them from actually parking in the residential areas. And there's not a way for me to require that everybody that's going as a customer to the Morgan Arts Complex pay the valet, because if there's a free spot on the street, they can park there, or they could choose not to. But if you live over there, you've already seen sort of the impact of that. So
It's not free, they city stickers. We have to park on the street.
because your car is registered, yes. In that case, you're paying for that. So let me go to Jack. Are you still on? Jack Burns? Oh, he got kicked out, sorry. Jack, you got like a really good friend in here. Deb, I see you in the queue. I want to get back to Jack. Somehow he got disconnected. Jack Burns. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that. No, go ahead.
I am remote and I forgot to plug my computer in. And you kind of answered some of my questions when I was waiting. is there a way to separate out the east zone from the west zone? It sounds to me like, and based on just the participants there, it seems like there's more potential issues on the west end of the zone opposed to east of Halsted. Is it possible, for the sake of discussion, future discussion, to treat each zone different? I mean, I know you're trying to keep it all in aggregate now, but can we separate it out, or can you separate it out? It sounds like some of the residents that I've spoken to that live on the streets of Emerald and Union are really opposed to this, that either didn't show up or maybe sent you an email or a call. But can we discuss it in two phases? Just because it doesn't sound like there's much interest on the east side of Halsted.
Yeah, I look, the short answer is yes, they can certainly be considered separately. These could be done on a block by block basis, but you know, and you may have gotten cut off at that point. The thing about residential permit parking and the sort of the part of the other double-edged sword is if you do it in one area and not in the other, the area that does not have the residential parking permits, they will end up with the parking problem.
Right.
So my idea
Sure.
here was that if we do both sides, then if we did both sides at the same time, there wouldn't be an issue of like, okay, now that there's no parking on the west side, we're all gonna go shopping on the east side for parking now.
Right.
The short answer to the question is yes, it could absolutely be separated. And you know, appreciate the suggestion and we'll absolutely take that under consideration.
So my last kind of comment on this is, and number one, I think there's a need for more direct input from the residents. I don't think they knew to come up and voice their opinion or send you an email. If it helps, I'll be happy to go down the blocks of Emerald and Union to get the people to sign for or against it. Just because I think once it's in place, the last thing you want is buyer's remorse, because my God, we can't get a handicapped sign taken down 3 years after somebody's dead. How do you then repeal a zone parking once it's into effect? Is it another introduction into the city council, and what's that process? Because it sounds really good now for some people until it's not good for some people, and then they want out of it. How do you get out of it?
Yeah, so the short answer on the way you get out of it is the way you got into it. That's an ordinance. It can be introduced. It's got to go through the process. So it'll be a lot quicker to end it than to put it up, because we've got to go through the process of, you know, putting everything up in terms of signs and everything. Yeah, and look, like I said earlier, this is no final decisions are being made. The input is like, I said that at the top of this, and for everybody who's now on the call, say it again and in the room. No final decisions are being made. Today is the second community meeting. This is not a small thing. I hope you understand that I hear that. And I want to hear from as many people as possible on this. You know, if you want to, Jack, go door to door and like do that. No, I'm happy for you to do that, especially if there are that many people in opposition. Like I said, if you bring me 75% of the neighborhood does not want this, on the east side, then I'm not dumb. I'm not going to do it to like spite people. You know, I'm proposing this as an idea to try to protect people. And if it's falling flat with folks on the east side that don't want it, but the west side does, we'll do it that way. There's a million different ways to do this. And frankly, if I get enough negative feedback overall and people just don't want this done, I will just go back to living my awesome aldermanic life and not have to worry about residential permit parking.
No, I appreciate that, and we have enough members and friends and residents that live on those 6 blocks that I think would be happy to do what you're asking. But at the end of the day, you know, a lot of us have lived there an awfully long time, and not having parking isn't a new issue to us. Let's not create an issue because we have 2 great developments in our ward that we asked for 30 years. And now that we have the investment, now we're worried about parking, but we don't worry about the 3 flat that has 9 cars because mom and dad and the 3 kids all drive 5, separate vehicles. So we're not going to solve a parking problem all we're going to do is restrict the parking for the people that use it on a regular basis.
Hey, Jack, I appreciate your feedback.
Yep.
I've got a question in the room. Gentleman in the pink shirt, go ahead. Actually, sir, could you come talk into the microphone so that we could hear? I apologize. I don't have a wireless mic. Mm-hmm.
It's not. So there's no way that I'm going to be able to move the registration over to the building that I live in. I have own policy for building area. Am I not gonna be able to park?
You'd have to get day passes. That's how that would work. If this were to happen, you'd have to put a day pass on your car every day if you're parking on the street.
Every day
Yes. I think I know where you're voting on this. I think it's just team no parking zone. Deb, there was someone else had a hand up. Deborah Bristow, maybe? Are you still on the, yes, Deb, go ahead. I apologize. I didn't forget about you. Go ahead. You have to unmute yourself though. Go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I need lessons in how to do this, but
You're managing just fine.
thank you. I just wanted to just make a comment that I think that $25 a year, that is nothing to be able to park your car and have a semi-reserved area so we don't have to walk 3 blocks ourselves. And to me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's $25. It's not even, a nickel a day, please. So, I just don't think that that's an issue. And another question, just a question, that was just a comment. A question is like, if I know I'm going to visit somebody on Morgan, I live on Union, 35th and Union. Would I be able to purchase whatever those passes are to visit my friend over by Donovan? Even though I don't live there.
You would be on a different side. You would be in
Right,
a different zone essentially. So your friend would have to purchase them.
They'd have to purchase it for me.
Yeah.
I'll just pay her. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Deb. I appreciate it. Anybody else
Okay.
have a question in the Zoom? Otherwise, I'm going to jump over to the chat to see if there's anything else we can share here.
You know how many?
I don't have that number, but we can get it.
Say. And actually have the residency. The residency is the key driver. Who parks in a residence? So ultimately, they should have a little bit more weight given to their argument. I understand visitors, I understand who comes into the, that you're actually in that zone. I had this. Your voice should be heard a little bit, but hey, I do want to go visit one. On over and a lot of.
So on the when we do residential permit parking, just block by block, right? So it's just by the address. We don't check to see if you have a registered vehicle. I mean, that would be an additional layer, but I hear what you're saying completely. Yeah, and we'll figure out a way to do this, and that's the other problem with petitions, that 100% right. This is not managed by the clerk's office. If there was going to be a ban on Airbnbs, that is a process that is completely managed by the clerk's office. They verify signatures based on voter registrations. That's how they verify signatures. And I can tell you this because we had a moratorium request that was processed for Canaryville, and they came up short 18 signatures. Yeah, so we have to go downtown and try to review to see which signatures weren't right, but they do verify every single signature. That is a very time-consuming process, and frankly, it would be very challenging for my staff to sit down and have to do that. I hope it doesn't come to that. So we first talked about residential permit parking before the Ramova opened. And we waited a period of time, you know, we're in May now, we're coming right up against June to see what the traffic was going to be like. And maybe the hurt is not bad enough just yet for enough of the people to want to do this. So I hear you. I appreciate the suggestion, and I'm going to find out how many cars are actually registered in the zoned areas, just so that we can share that information in the aggregate.
That's. Welcome to see.
That would also mean that the people that have 5 cars at one residential address would essentially have 5 votes. So just that's just crazy to me, because the insurance is insane. I totally get it. Hold on 1 second, because Tyler, go ahead.
One thing that's we brought up, right, we just opened, maybe a couple shows a month. I would suggest people that are trying to get, look at Talia Hall's schedule and look at metros, so people have mentioned. That is where we're hoping to reach successful location in the next 12-18 months.
I'm just going to repeat that real quick, because you didn't walk up to the microphone and I didn't throw it at you. No, so Tyler from the Ramova just said, you know, Tyler from Ramova just said, I'm going to summarize it and just tell me if I'm catching any of this wrong, because I didn't have enough caffeine today. That you know, the Ramova just opened. They've had about 2 shows, 2 a month so far. But what they're aspiring to is something more like the Metro or Talia Hall. So his suggestion was, if you want to understand what the impact is of a venue like this, take a look at the schedules for Talia Hall and the Metro, and take a look at what parking looks like over there. And I will have the conversations with the other older people who have those. All right, I'll tell you that I think in the 44th ward, all of the 44th ward is residential permit parking, and they do have to pay for it. It's not free.
Yeah.
Nobody has the deal that we have with the sock stickers right now. Okay. And that we'll revisit that conversation. I promise you, I will take another look at it. But as I've already outlined to you, some of the real challenges there would be with something like that. Go and Tyler, go ahead. No.
So not seeing your in, you brought up the question what we're trying to do. We're going to have enough spots. All the local spots. We'll have enough real estate. I was $30 million. Is there a plan to? You plan to spend 30, you plan on 28. But no,
Well, I think it's pretty complicated. I think plenty. I mean, change it around.
Would you be make enough money to build a project? Love to develop. We absolutely wouldn't do something. And just on the, I appreciate the chance and Jennifer question. Emily and I are actually the largest investors. They're just. And
That is popular. I'm gonna get stuck in the apartment. 2 years, you got an apartment now everybody's stuck in the apartment.
Well, I hear you, like say 70, say we build a 4, that takes us to 280. There would be less than that because of all the elevation and everything. But we'd still be the same. I mean, we might make a dent in it, we take some of the people out of the outside parking areas at Joe B or Trip Light. It's gonna be an issue.
And I think a parking garage will make sense. It costs $2 to walk into George's to buy a $3 suit.
No.
So if you charge $1 an hour when you got nothing going on, you make more money in your parking garage than a parking.
But we like, and again, I hear it makes sense. The challenge is people are gonna see $5 at Morgan Arts Center and they're still gonna go park it. I mean, we saw people we were charging $10 when people were asking each other, where's the free parking in the neighborhoods, there wasn't any more because everybody already taken it out. Like, we're doing what we can, but.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not even. Sure. Drunk people walking through the. That's wrong. I'm not against you. No, one, you know, not gonna be, Saturday, it's over at 9:30. People are gone by 10. And now you've got some drunk guy peeing on my car at 1 o'clock. Yeah, it's 4 blocks away. I mean, I'm sorry, we call 9. It takes 25 minutes to 30 minutes. And that's a different situation, you know, because they're all out.
Right.
It's football.
You're-
The parking thing doesn't really stop. Because they can go right in the wall. That's not.
All right. So hey guys, I just want to, I'm mindful of time. We're already at 7:06. I'm happy to keep talking for a little bit more because I know that there are still a couple comments and questions in the room. And a couple other comments here that I want to make sure we get captured. But if you need to go, please feel free to. It's 7:06 right now. We're not going to close down the library, but sir, do you have a follow-up? They end up being about 50 cents. Yeah. Penny, did you have can you come over here actually and talk in the microphone? Okay, so
I am for the podcast. I live in the red zone. There was an event going on. I had to pick the less people. I parked in a tow zone, got a ticket because I'm not parking in I live right by Big Prime. I live right behind Ramova. I had no parking. I'm for the permit. That's just. It was a show. Yeah.
Super state. Right, so.
But a residential parking area would give preference to the residents on the street. That's what it would do.
I'd rather pay the $25 instead of somebody.
Thanks for your input, Penny. I'm gonna go into, it's a book return, sorry, that everybody's trying to get their books in on time. So I just want to make sure I've covered more of there's been a lot of chat going on. I know, Carlos, thank you. You've been answering questions. I just want to make sure if there's anything. JPK 743, you put in the ordinance here. I just, want to be completely transparent what you put in here. I know for a fact that other alders have put in residential zoning without petitions. I'm not suggesting at this point, given the feedback that, I'm going to go one way or another, but I appreciate you making sure that we were aware of that. Dave B, you need to have revenue come out and start ticketing these vehicles that are taking up residential spots in these 10 and 15 passenger vans. Okay. When you see vehicles parked like that, you can call 311, or you can also let us know at the ward office. If you give us a sense of where this is happening, I can send parking enforcement out to your blocks. B plates are not supposed to be parking on residential streets. I can't always promise you that I'm going to be able to get parking enforcement out on the first try, because again, they're shorthanded everywhere. But if we have a sense of where there's violators of this, if there's chronically 2 of these passenger vans parked on your street, tell me where you live and what time the vans are there so that I can get someone to go over and ticket. We can ask the police to do that when they're not responding to something more emergent and they have time to do that. They will go over and ticket those vehicles. Nick, I got your vote. Thank you very much for your feedback. Abby, if you want to get speed humps on your block, you should definitely come talk to us. And there's a traffic up and down Emerald and Union. I agree, is like NASCAR. We are actively looking at that right now. We have traffic studies going. I'm trying to get rid of the traffic lights because people race to beat the traffic lights all the time. I think actually stop signs would be better. And yes, stock stickers are only for part of the year. They're currently, the way that the ordinance is written is only for those The Sox zone is only enforced when there is a ball game going on. And it's for 2 hours before the game and 1 hour and 1 hour after. Yes. It is for games and events, but the signs that are posted only say ball game. So we've got an order into CDOT to change all of the signs because that's wrong. Yeah, and it was very confusing. No, it was horrible. It was horrible because we got people who weren't used to coming into the neighborhood to go to the ballpark. That if you just look it up on Google, it's totally taking you to 35th Street. On nights when there's games, the Sox don't direct traffic to 35th because all the parking lots are either on 39th or you access them off of 33rd. So duly noted, we figured that out last year and we're working on getting all of the signs changed. And making sure that we do announcements way further in advance, especially for residents, of when there are concerts coming up, if the signs haven't been changed yet.
Yeah,
Yeah, trust me, I wanted to throw my phone away that night. Yes, go. 24 hours, so. No, they're good for a year. They're good for the calendar year. Okay, I'll double check on that to make sure I give everybody a good answer on that. I believe that they do change over, because they change colors every year. I think the reason they change colors is for enforcement. So I think maybe you've been really lucky, Pete. I hope I didn't bring the universe over to you to get a parking ticket though. Okay, yeah, you got a sticker, so you're okay. But you write in the time that it starts, so it's not, it's not automatic. So, if you're parked there at noon, you write noon and then it's good for 24 hours until noon the next day. Okay. Okay, so the proposal would be expanding the zone and expanding the year round, slightly more complicated than just expanded zone. That's correct with the White Sox. We covered the price of day passes. Yes, CTA reliability. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry about the mishap with no, okay, got it. Good. Have fun at the game. Have Abby, we're definitely working on those lights. And Jack, thanks for participating. You guys have a good weekend. I think that's everything here. Carlos, you have your hand raised? Go ahead.
Yes, just a quick clarification on B plates before we get a bevy of calls. There are some exceptions for pickup trucks and the larger vans like Astro vans, if anybody remembers those. Those need to have B plates, but they are not considered business or commercial.
So I think we're talking about Sprinter vans.
Right. Those are fine, but since
those are okay to be parked on residential streets?
Yes, because there's
I stand corrected.
Yeah. No, not the Sprinter vans, just like the pickups, because some of them.
No, that's what I was clarifying. So Sprinter vans cannot be parked
Correct.
on residential streets.
Correct.
Because that's what I was asking you. Okay.
Right. And also for the guest passes, they must be written in ink. I've seen people get tickets because they write it in pencil.
Okay. Good tip. So last question here, L. Crawford. So if I have a home health nurse coming every day, you're saying I have to pay for a pass for every day? Yes, the short answer is yes. Or we could try to have them get an exception for them to pay the additional $25, or you could pay the additional $25 to have their car there. Actually, I could probably do an exception for you. Now that I think about it. Yeah, now that I think about it, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I think
we could do an exception in that case. Like, so if that was the biggest barrier for you, I think we could solve for it. Okay. I think we could solve for that. So
I'll circle back an email, but on that note, can we make sure that everyone who's on the Zoom, has, DM Carlos their information?
Oh, yes. If you're on the Zoom, can you please, drop into the chat or message Carlos with your email address so that we can stay in touch with you? We are building the mailing list on this. We will, add you to the mailing list and make sure that you come back. So folks in the room, yeah. Please make sure we get your email addresses. Well, I appreciate everybody's participation. This is it's not a simple subject. Who wants my job? Come on, bring it on. Yeah, so the team and I will sit back down, we'll take a look. So the one thing that I didn't get to go back and do, for the people that are still here, if we do a zone, how do these borders look? I hear we should separate the two, and I'm okay with doing that. I just want to warn people that the consequence of that is if we do it on the west side and not at the same time as the east side, the potential, the very real potential is that all of the overflow will go to the east side.
Well, not just that, if I may, then the problem we had, why the Alderwoman wanted to do this holistically is that we had individual people from individual blocks coming in for one block permits. So now 35th and Emerald is permitted, but 36th isn't, and 37th is, but a different permit. So that's one of the issues is once the whole west side of it gets it, and there's overflow, and it's not done all at once on the east side. Now it's the same problem that Jimmy or Jack or anyone else had, that if you want to go to, now there's 3 different areas and some have it and some don't. So it's just something to consider. It's not saying-
I agree.
There's a benefit to all or not, but we have to realize that may happen because it already started happening, which is why the Alderwoman said, let's get in front of it with these meetings, so.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's gonna.
And it very well might not, but it just might create.
I'm willing to pay $55 to make sure that I do have a place to park. Unfortunately,
That's not going to ensure you have a place.
Any chance at least. We got a better chance than like, thank God, only 2,000 people at the remote. That's a great thing.
I'll tell you, I live in Chinatown. Chinatown is always busy. If you try to drive to Chinatown, we have parking lots with 600 spots. Okay, it's not enough. We get that, and we're not saying that the Ramova, where we are right now, we're not Chinatown in terms of the traffic. But I will tell you, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks along Wentworth and the old part of Chinatown from Cermak to 24th Place that have residential permit parking in some form or another. In some cases, it's only west of Princeton. So, from Wentworth to Princeton, at where the street divides, there is no residential parking. It's horrible for those people. But it hasn't been horrible enough that anybody's come to me to say, can we extend the zone? Now, we'll tell you, though, that I don't have a problem finding parking on my street now. Now, if there's a problem house that's throwing parties all the time and they have guests around and I can't get parking enforcement to come over and it's only 8 to 8 and they're coming at 9 o'clock at night. And now my alderman hours are that I don't get home till 9 or 10 at night. I might be parking up. I haven't had to go 3 blocks away, but I've had to go, park halfway down the block where I don't typically park. And my street is not, it's pretty quiet too. So it does, in my experience, having lived in a residential zone for probably 20 years at this point here, it does allow for you to have your parking saved. Like that is my absolute experience. And I live in Chinatown. When it's worse is when we have big events. And when there are big events going on, the parking enforcement does come out, right? So because we ask for it, because I had someone park in my dad's disabled parking space in a residential zone. And we had to have someone try to come tow the car. And we waited all night. This is me calling to try to get someone to come. Got ticketed. They may have even gotten ticketed twice. But what I'm saying is that for me personally, I think that the RPP, so Kyle, you just asked, so why not make it a singular RPP? We could still, I think we did it to try to just to keep people from sort of bouncing back and forth on either side. It's and I don't know, Kyle, if you just joined us or not, nothing's gonna be final tonight. I'm taking in all of the ideas. We've taken copious notes. And we're gonna come back with a revised proposal. And then I'm gonna keep this open for discussion, for at least for a couple of weeks. And if I feel like it's not the right time to do it, then, you know, I'll make the judgment call and then we won't do it. We'll hold off a little longer, but know that what's at risk at this point is if we don't get something in by June, nothing's going to happen with this until later in the fall. Because we'll lose August, because we go on recess in August. This wouldn't be heard until September. Once it's heard, it's probably another 6 to 8 weeks before we get signs up anywhere. That's on the bright side.
It's very bright.
You know, if you learn nothing else from Alderman Lee, you know that I keep it real with you. Even if you don't want to hear it, I'm gonna just give it to you. So I appreciate everybody's.
Yeah, we elected just to make sure that, and that is the expedited timeline.
Yeah.
That we've been given. So talk to your neighbors, see what they think and what their experience is. We, like Alderman Lee's, we just want to get ahead of any problems that could potentially occur. And it sounds like we don't have that consensus right now, but the more feedback we get, the better that we're able to have a pulse on the situation.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm gonna stop sharing here and thank all of you who are on the chat and in the Zoom room for joining us. If you have more feedback for us, please feel free to send us an email or call the office and try to set up a time to see me. I may set up some other office hours to discuss this, just with the sensitivity. Thanks, everybody.